Heljan recently released their 2020 line of cargo wagon ferry vans. I had missed these last time round, so I decided to take the plunge this time. Let's take a closer look. Hi, thanks for joining today's review. So first of all, we're going to do an unboxing of a number of the different van types. We'll then do some close-up view and 360 view of those vans. We'll follow that with a running session, and then we'll go through an overall summary and then a final scoring and recommendations. Okay, let's get underway. Okay, so for this part of the review, we're going to do a quick unboxing of the different wagon types that we're going to take a look at today. So the first of these, which is the cargo wagon, the weathered version with graffiti. Now, you may ask, why do I not have the pristine version? Unfortunately, that was sold out on pre-order, so I wasn't able to get one of those. So we're going to have to make do with the weathered version for today. So let's take a look at this guy, get him out of the box. I mean, the first thing, I suppose, when you get a Heljan box, a blue box, you usually expect it to weigh quite a bit. I think the difference with these ones is these are actually quite light. Now we'll do a little bit of a weigh-in later on to actually get the weight of these coaches. I guess the physical size of them would get you to expect them to be a little bit heavier, but they are relatively light actually, so it'll be interesting to actually weigh them in later on. They seem to weigh maybe just a little bit more than a regular Mark III coach, for example. That's the kind of weight level you're talking about, and that's obviously the same sort of size as well. So this is a weathered version. There is, as I say, a pristine version of this coach with the cargo wagon logo on it. This one's got some weathering, and it's got some graffiti added here on this side, and still has all the rest of the same sort of detail you get on the non-weathered version. Though some of these things are a little bit brighter, and you'll see that on one of the other pristine versions. You'll kind of see some of these items that kind of show up a bit more on the non-weathered version. Still though, it's a nice coach. There's a different graffiti on this side, so effectively you've kind of got two. You can basically turn these coaches around and have one going in one direction, one going the other direction, and you'll have different graffiti on the two sides, so which is quite useful, and we'll see that a little bit later on in the running session with this. So overall, it's got a nice feel to it. I think the weathering is pretty good. Obviously, some people may prefer to add more, and these coaches in reality can be extremely heavily weathered. If you look at on YouTube and check some real life breaks with these sorts of coaches, two things that kind of strike you is the variety of the different types of these. They'll all be this type of wagon, but they'll have maybe different logos, different levels of weathering on them, and some of them can be extremely heavily weathered, like literally just everything blanked out. It's so badly weathered. So I suppose if you want to do that, that's something you can do yourself. So overall, this looks good. This is a nice looking wagon. It's large. It's physically large. It's not too heavy, which is good if you're going to have a rake of these, and you know, it's fine, and the box and everything it comes with is fine. There's just some very minor detailing in here, and there's the couplers. So there's no couplers installed. When you out of the box, you have to install the two couplers there, and there's some very small level of detailing. So really, pretty well, the detailing is on this already, and you know, and as is the weathering and the graffiti. So that's a good one for starters. So let's just leave this one too. And this is the pristine version now, so this kind of gives you an idea what the pristine coach looks like, and this kind of will show you a little bit more of the detail, I guess, that doesn't really come out. That underbody detail that doesn't really quite come out there. The yellow parts that are added, they're separately fitted parts. I mean, the labeling is fantastic here. I mean, there's a really fantastic level of detail labeling all across the model. So you know, that's very impressive. It doesn't have spring buffers, but I kind of wouldn't really expect that. So this is the pristine level. This is what it is. It's nice, and some people may prefer this to the weathered versions. You know, it's nice as well, and it would look nice if I had the version with the cargo wagon logo on it as well. I wouldn't have minded if I'd been able to get that. As I say, that's sold out on pre-order, and I don't see that available anywhere at the moment from any of the vendors, whereas some of these other versions are still available. No, this is the same coach, and plain silver, but this one is with weathering and graffiti. So again, the same sort of effect that we had with the original coach. We've got that here with the same kind of weathering, and yeah, you can kind of see it there. Somebody seemed to like Susie. So that's all over the body there. It's not, it's a medium level of weathering, I would say. There's weathering at the end there, as you can see. And then similar weathering on the other side and weathering on the underbody. No weathering under here actually, which is interesting. So for the purist, you may want to get the airbrush out to cover that off. But again, I think this is perfectly presentable. Again, the nice labeling across the model, and neutral from a kind of a branding perspective. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in terms of the usage of this particular wagon on your layout if you're using a contemporary freight layout. So that's that one. So this has got a kind of a European sort of branding on it, and it comes in the weathered finish. And again, you'll see these in real life rakes, and it's very much contemporary branding. And again, the same level of detail. Again, some nice signage, some different sort of labeling on this one now. But really, really good. I mean, it's a very nice model, and I think you're getting a lot of value for your money. So you can see that this, effectively, the labeling here has been over-branded. If you look underneath, the cargo wagon labeling is actually just underneath this, and this new, more modern branding has been overlaid on top. So that's effectively what's happened here. It obviously represents what's happened in reality with this type of coach. So that's another very nice one, and this is one of the more contemporary liveries, as I say, because it's obviously reflecting a more modern branding on it. We'll take a look at the last, which is actually a two wagon set, and this is again a contemporary livery, like as in now. That's a twin pack, the Rail Adventure version. There's two different wagons included here, and these are pristine livery. So these, again, as I say, they would be the newest available, the newest you'd see on the railways. And again, you will see these, and I guess slightly different look to it. Doesn't have the silver sheen. It's just a grey with the grey band on it. The Rail Adventure branding, same sort of detailing, I suppose, underneath here. A little bit of slightly different bogie detail there, as you can see, a little bit of different end detail. So this is I'd say, a more contemporary coach. These ones would be of the current time frame. But again, the same sort of weight and same overall effect. And so you get a two-pack. Essentially, the other coach is the same as this, and you get a two-pack. And that's pretty nice as well. So some people may have their preferences between the different types. I like all of them, I suppose, and I will give in the running session, I'll include all of these, so you get a feel for them. And it's just a pity I don't have the pristine version of the original cargo wagon version. So now we're going to take a close-up view at the side of two of these wagons. Starting off with the unbranded wagon, which is in the pristine livery. So this is the lowest cost. I haven't talked about the cost yet, but this is the lowest cost entry point. There's an £8.50 difference between the pristine liveries and the weathered liveries, which I think is a little bit on the high side. So this, you can see here, very nice rendered livery there. Now I do look at the weathered version here, and as I say, I think the level of weathering here is actually quite nice. Obviously the underlying coach is the same. This one has the cargo wagon branding on it. I do quite like the level of weathering on this. I think it's about right, and it is £8.50 more expensive, however, so that's just something to keep in mind. So some people may prefer to get the pristine livery and do the weathering themselves, and that certainly may be an option. And so we're going to take some 360 views. These are two of the weathered coaches, so that's the cargo wagon with the weathered version of that again, taken with one of the newer versions, like the new rebranded version that has the the branding kind of overlaid on the older cargo wagon branding. Now you'll notice that the level of weathering is a bit heavier on the cargo wagon, the original cargo wagon version. And I'm not quite sure the reason for this. It may be because of the age, because that would have been an original wagon. So if you're running two of these together in a rake, the rebranded wagon would actually be a newer wagon and probably would have a little bit less weathering on it, and that's maybe the rationale for that. So both of these are weathered, so these are the more expensive of the wagons, as I say. These are the unbranded versions, again showing the weathered and the unweathered versions, so you can kind of see the two side by side, which is, I think, pretty useful to see. There's a nice level of weathering on this one here, as you can see again, with the graffiti, and again different graffiti on either side. It's not as standout as the graffiti, I think, on the cargo wagon from just the previous view. I think in general they're nice wagons, as I said, and again people may prefer to purchase the unweathered version, save a little bit on that if you're building a rake, and do the weathering yourself if you are looking for weathering. That certainly may be an option for people. And these are the newest that you'll see, the Rail Adventure branding, the newest versions. So I suppose they don't provide a weathered version of these. Again, maybe in keeping with the fact that these are the newest ones that you're going to see on the railways. And so again, it's up to yourself if you want to weather these. And again, obviously these are the lower cost because they're the pristine livery. But again, very nice looking wagons, and it's good to get a good 360 view. So now we're going to go into the running session. So there is a full running session with no commentary. I'll put a link in the description to that. This one's going to go through it pretty quickly. We'll start off at just the startup speed. We'll get into a mid-speed pretty quickly, and then we'll run these at the kind of maximum prototypical speed, which is in the kind of 70 mile per hour range, to give you a view as to how they run on the layout. Now, I wasn't quite sure as to how well they would run when I looked at the bogies, and a little bit of an issue with the brake pads, and I'll talk about that in the summary. I wasn't sure whether I might have some problems with these, and certainly running freight, I'm always reluctant to run freight at the kind of higher speeds, because obviously even the coaches or the wagons I should say aren't really designed for that. But I was pleasantly surprised with how smooth these wagons actually ran, and I didn't have any problems with them. I did have one issue I'll talk about with in reverse, when I was doing a reverse onto my inner track there through the point work, and again that was because of an issue with the little brake detail, and I'll talk about that in the summary, as I said. But these do run okay on radius 2 as well as radius 3, radius 4 obviously. No problems, and they did perform well. As I speed this up, you'll see that they hug the track really well, and don't put an excessive load on the locomotive either, because they're obviously quite light. I thought they actually looked really good, and I was very pleased. I actually didn't expect them to run as well as they did, and I didn't have any problems during the running session, and I thought they ran really smoothly. Actually, have a really smooth feel to them. And I thought it looked pretty good on the layout. So we're just running this up now to, this is the kind of maximum prototypical speed you want to be running these things at. As I said, I wouldn't fancy running them at much higher than what I'm doing here, because they do have slightly smaller wheels than the normal side coach wheels, and that can lead into just some more challenges when you're running at higher speed. But no problems, ran really well, really nice performing wagons, and I'm very pleased with them. And hopefully that gave you a good look at what they look like and how they perform, and as I said, very satisfactory running session with them. Look good, ran really well. I really can't add any more to that, and as I said, take a look at the full length running session if you're interested in that as well. Okay, I mentioned during the running session that I did have an issue with the brake pad assembly for this. And this is this assembly here that runs out, and it has these little brake detail added to it. So you've got two pads per wheel on the wagon. It's mounted in the center here, in the center piece here, and that can actually come a little bit loose. Which causes the pads to actually run against the wheels, and you get a bit of friction on the wheels. And in general, that just means a heavier load and maybe a little bit of a noise when you're running the coach. obviously the coach isn't running cleanly at that point in time. That may cause you problems at high speed. It caused me a problem when actually reversing the rake onto the second circuit on my layout. I was reversing the rake through some point work and around a bend, and the effect of this actually resulted in a derailment. So something to watch for. It's easily rectified. You can rectify it by pressing in with your thumb and pressing down that assembly just gently, so that it just re-engages in the middle there. It mounts in the middle of the bogie area there. Or you can actually just press it down with something like a screwdriver, just make sure it's secure in place. And then you should, when you turn the coach over, put it back on the rails, you should see you're freely running again. A little bit of a build quality issue, so I'll reflect that in the scoring. But didn't give me too many problems. That was the only time I had a problem. And once I took up the coach and addressed it this way, I didn't have any issues after that. Okay. So now we're going to take a look at a summary of what we've been going through. So we've been looking at the Heljan 00 gauge cargo wagons, the 2020 version that have just been released recently. There was 6 variants across 4 different livery types, and they come with standard NEM couplers. There's fixed buffers. They weigh in at 142 grams per wagon, which is a little bit on the light side for such a large wagon, but that probably helps when you're running a large rake. And they have a length of 285 millimeters. It's roughly the same length as a Mark III coach. Come with a very minimal detailing kit, and the typical selling price is in the $33.95 to $39.95, which is the RRP. And I picked these up for the $33.95 level, and you'll see them at that price from most of the vendors would have them at that $33.95 price for the pristine version. The weather coaches are more expensive, as I mentioned, and they come in at $42.45, between $42.45, $49.95 RRP. So there's actually a £10 difference at the RRP level for the weathered coaches, which I think is a little bit steep. Typically the cost of weathering for a wagon like this would probably be of the order of £3 to £4. So it's a little bit heavy, so that might encourage people to purchase the pristine versions and maybe weather them themselves. And again, I would have paid the $42.45, which again is what most of the sellers are online sellers are selling it for right now. The only exception would be if you have to go to eBay, and particularly for the unicorn in this set, which was the pristine cargo wagon, which was sold out in pre-order. You would tend to see that coming for ridiculous prices on eBay, so you're going to have to pay an awful lot more if you want to get that particular one. Now, I do have a potential option for that, and I'll talk about that in another video. I've done some research on it, and I have located a potential alternative to that particular coach type, and I'll cover that in a separate video in the next week. So I'm going to skip through the different versions quickly, just as a summary. I've seen all of these already, and just give you the part numbers. So the 5016 is that pristine version of the cargo wagon. The version with the graffiti and the weathering is the 5017. If we go to the unbranded versions, the pristine is the 5018, and the weathered version is the 5019, and you'll have seen those earlier. The one here with the rebranding, which is only in a weathered version, there's no pristine version for this, so you do have to pay the full price for it, as the 5021 I should say. And then we go to the Rail Adventure set, which comes as a 2-car set, pristine only. That comes in at just over £67, which is just exactly the price of 2 pristine coaches, and that's at the Heljan 5020 set. So now we come to the scoring. So in terms of running performance, I was pretty impressed with these wagons. That issue with the reversing and the brake pads was really the only glitch that I had. In terms of the other running performance, these performed actually better than I thought they would. Looking at the bogie assembly, I actually thought I may have some more problems with these wagons, but they did perform very well. And so I'm giving it it's a good strong 4-star. Just watch out for that issue with the brake assembly. Appearance and detail, I'm giving 4.5 star. I really am pleased with these. I think they look really good. I think there's an awful lot of very detailed labelling on the wagons, and when you get the weathered wagons with the things like the graffiti, which that would be really challenging to do yourself, the graffiti part of it. So, and there's different graffiti on either side of those wagons, so that's really good. So they look well. I think they did a good job. So 4.5 star on that. The extras are minimalistic. As I said, it's a very tiny detailing kit with some really small extra piping. Build quality, I'm knocking this down a little bit because of that brake assembly issue. So there's a slightly cheap feel to these, and particularly when you look at the underbody, there's really no detail in the underbody area at all, and there's no weathering either on the weathered versions of the wagons. So build quality, I'm giving a 4 star, and the packaging is, I think it's adequate, but nothing special. The price value is, I'm giving actually two scores here. One for the pristine version, which is 4.5 stars, because I think $33.95 is a really good price for a large wagon like this, which is a pretty good quality, good running, nice looking wagon, contemporary. And when you compare it to, you know, the new offers that are out there, $42.95 or $42.45 is pretty expensive, I think, for the weathered version, and that cost differential from a weathering perspective is a bit high. And it's higher than other vendors, such as people like Oxford or Bachmann, etc., who might typically only have a £3 to £4 difference between the weathered version, the pristine version of a wagon. So not so good on that side if you with the weathered versions. Though I still like the wagons, and I do like the graffiti and all of that. I think it does look very good, but you're just not getting the same value, I think, on the weathered versions. So overall, I'm giving this a very strong 4 star, and I think these are good-looking wagons. I think they perform very well. They're very contemporary look to them. So if you've got some Class 66s on your layout, these go hand in hand with the Class 66 as being contemporary rolling stock. So I've been pretty pleased with them, pretty happy with them, and I would highly recommend them if you can get hold of them, that is. So these are selling pretty quickly, and as I said, that particular, the main version, that cargo wagon in the pristine livery, I've had to locate an alternative for that, and I will cover that in a separate video. So thanks for watching today, as always. Hope you enjoyed this. If you found this a useful video, please hit the like button, please share it, and we'll hopefully see you on the next one. And in the meantime, happy modelling.